And with that, we're live.
Great.
Hey guys, it's me, Andrew.
And
with,
Ben.
With Ben, who might as well not even be here.
Well, you said guys instead of y'all.
I did say guys instead of y'all.
Disgusting.
I agree.
Sorry that Andrew's terrible. You're used to it by now.
Hey, I'm excited to be here. So
Me too.
we get to play with the new equipment and like test how terrible I am at this. So, hey y'all, it's Andrew Reed with Mossy Creek Mushrooms, and today Mossy Creek Mushrooms is putting on a podcast that we're calling MushRune Cast. So let's cast the mushrooms.
Sounds great.
All right.
All right, so you just want to jump into what this is and what we're doing?
Yeah, I mean, we can do that for sure. So the idea is that starting every Wednesday at 3:30 p.m., we're going to be hosting MushRune Cast. We are hoping to have guests and topics and all kinds of things galore. And I've got some. Do what? Was that Samantha?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, full of bugs already.
Equipment failure. What do you do?
Right. So, got some cool new toys to play with, cameras and a switchboard and microphones and things like that. I'm feeling kind of weirdly official on things. So, but yeah, hopefully you guys will want to join us every Wednesday at 3:30. And we're going to test this for a little while, see if the time works out well for us. Works out well for having guests and things, and for Ben, who has a generally weird schedule.
Yep.
So, we also have Samantha with us in the corner. Who? There you go. You can see her hand now. So yeah, let's see. Beyond that, we're going to be trying to put out about 52 of these things this year. Let's see where the system fails. But yeah, today I figured we would just have a general like Q&A and strobe effect on the camera. Oh, that's actually supposed to be firelight. See, I've got on my phone, I got this new toy where I can play with things, and
yeah,
one of those
probably
things.
Gonna throw some people off. It already looks kind of cave-like in here, and then you have this.
Well,
whole...
I'm thinking about putting the light down so that the fire will have a more upward look to it.
We'll see.
You know, but yeah, we'll see. So as far as that goes, like man, there's like lots of cool effects that we can do. Let's see. How about if I do something wrong, right? If I do something wrong, you never know who's going to visit. Oh, it's not even doing it. Why is it not doing it?
I don't know.
I don't care. It's supposed to be cops. Or a fire. Either way, I'm not going to play with it right now because this is going to be boring if I'm just on here, so.
Probably already is.
Probably already is. Anyways, today we're going to be doing mostly a Q&A. So it'll be more like our general podcast. I'm only going to be doing it for our general live streams. We're only going to be doing it for about an hour today. I'm not doing marathon sessions anymore. I just can't. I just don't have that kind of thing in me anymore. So that said, I'm hoping that going forward, I'm going to be able to hook up cameras to I cannot hook up the cameras to microphones. Cameras to microscopes. Macro lenses. We'll be able to get lots of close-ups of things. I'm hoping to have some assets, like video assets we can actually use in all of this stuff. So hopefully this will grow and you guys will grow with us. So
yeah. So I think that's enough as far as just talking about what we're planning on doing. I think at this point we can just do the thing.
Okay. Well, that sounds good.
But yeah, I'm not going to be here for everyone. I like the idea of being involved as much as possible. So you'll see me a little bit. Sometimes you won't. Get over it.
Because everyone needs a pen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. My sister got me this shirt like a year ago, and I was supposed to wear it in a video. Never have because I hate it.
Good. Hey, someone said the sound is good. That's good because I've been working on that for 2 days, trying to like really make sure that it works well.
Good.
And I thought it sounded terrible, but I was going to go ahead and go with it anyways. So, but I'm glad that it actually works. Timothy Schwab says, "What's up from Juanita Mushroom Company?" What's up, Tim?
Oh, hey.
What's up, Urban Veg?
Juniata, I think.
Is it Juniata?
Yeah.
I think it is. Yeah, I think I.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
He explained it to me because I totally thought it was Juanita, but.
Okay. Well, sorry about that, Tim.
I'm sure he's fine. Oh, look, Seth's on there.
It is Seth. I like the strobe effect. Oh, that's the one that said the strobe effect. Oh, thank you, Seth. Yeah, you got the explanation already.
Yep.
Lighting is awful. So I can jack the light up a little bit, or we can even turn it off. What do you think? Turn it off or leave it?
I don't know.
We'll leave it for now.
It doesn't matter.
It's only an hour.
Everything's gonna suck. That's just part of it.
Absolutely.
We'll get it figured out as we go.
Failing upward. What's up, James? Glad to see you on here, man. And it's off. This is why we have test runs. This is exactly why we have test runs, which, we did a test run, and I learned that I can barely manage the equipment, so. Yeah. Andrew, will you do a 2021 year-end review? I missed those. Urban, I might. I can probably put one of those together, and we'll see. I didn't put out that many videos for 2021.
Because he was terrible this past year.
Because I was terrible this past year. This has been a weird year. It's been a hard year, but a good year. Very profitable year, but very hard profitable year. So a lot of warehouse space, learning how to operate for the full year in here. We got halfway through the summer, we got the mini split up, and we're still behind on a lot of our projects and stuff. So it actually, I don't know, it's just been weird. It felt like this year went by and then didn't. It crawled by and then it just blipped by.
It was gone.
Yeah. Crawled by and then it was gone. That's good, yeah. So I'll see if I can work on one for sure. Ben, I have Thor. Any spare parts we need?
Probably.
Would you like to elaborate?
Yeah, ultimately I need to get, Seth has asked me for a frequently asked questions, and I think I'm probably going to get that together for him at some point in the next 20 years. So expect that within the given time frame, and within that I will have just a list of the common parts that have a tendency of going out. But yeah, most of everything can just be found on Amazon. But I'll try to get that together at some point. And I think Seth is just going to host that on Mushroom Media Online. And then, you said something about the steamer? I'm sorry, I can't read it because it's set for Andrew.
Oh, sorry. How about that?
So, yeah, so as far as the steamer goes, I'm still working on the liability and insurance. So whenever that's sorted out and I have all my ducks in a row, then that will become available. It takes time. I was hoping I'd have it by the end of the year. I didn't. I will definitely have it sometime within the next 20 years.
In the next 20 years. I look forward to it.
Me too.
So you answered the one about the steamer just now?
Yeah.
Okay. Hello from Michigan. Can you please discuss temperatures for different stages, please? Newbie here, 2 batches in. So I'm assuming you mean different stages of bag production. So different stages of bag production. I mean, obviously, once you get it out of sterilization and when it's sitting around, I'd like to keep things a little cool if I can, just to keep them from contaminating any further after they've been pasteurized until gone to the lab. That said, once they've been inoculated and shelved in incubation, I like to keep incubation somewhere 70, maybe 75. I don't want it to get anywhere above 75 though. So 70 to have a nice safety margin. And then when things go into the grow room, I like my grow rooms to be 65 to 60 degrees. Now that said, those are ideals, and rarely do I reach ideals. So
Andrew's got a video about the fruit fly, life cycle of a fruit fly, and he discusses temperatures there, especially in the grow room. So I would recommend that video just for a little bit more information. Fruit flies tend to be one of the biggest drivers for the need to cool your grow space.
Oh yeah.
So that's a very informative video. I would check that out.
Thank you. And then after that, the last stage is harvest and storage, and
34 degrees Fahrenheit if you can manage.
Yep.
If things start freezing at that point within your particular refrigerator, raise it up a little bit.
Sounds right. And then we have Absolute Mayhem. Thank you, Samantha. She's got her back in the chat. Are you? Well, I get that the light's a failie, and I can't really fix it midstream, so we'll get it at some other point. Are you accepting mushroom growing questions? Yes, Mayhem. Absolutely, we are. Good videos, bro. Like your information. Thank you, Cap. Trying to get down. My chat's not wanting to move. Hey, Andrew, do you have any tips for fruiting the Pathfinder strain? Maybe point to a prior video you've discussed this before. I don't know that I've actually ever discussed fruiting the Pathfinder.
Have you done a strain video for the Pathfinder?
I have not.
What?
I know. Well, what's interesting is I actually get asked a lot for strain videos, and I feel really bad producing.
We need to do the Pathfinder because that's one that we get a lot of questions about.
We get a lot of questions.
So the reality of it is Pathfinder is a weird one.
It is not it is not a first oyster.
Nor is it for the faint of heart.
Right. It is not for the...
Yeah, you try to grow it like a regular blue oyster, and it's going to look gross.
Right.
It needs a lot of fresh air.
A lot of fresh air.
And it tends to tulip anyway, even if you have it with excellent air exchange. So it always looks like it's starving. It's like choking to death. So a lot of fresh air. If fresh air is your bottleneck, don't grow Pathfinder. It's just what it is.
Right. So I get a lot of people who are like, I know it's not fresh air because my oysters that are right next to Pathfinder look amazing.
Right.
And it's like...
It's fresh air.
Still fresh air. It's still fresh air. That oyster needs a ton of fresh air. Going back to the strain videos, I will do a strain video on Pathfinder. I don't do very many strain videos because I feel bad about it. I don't know. What? Yeah, well, okay. I feel bad about it. I feel like I'm kind of salesman-y. But I will say that I've had so many questions about, hey, can you do strain videos? This year I'm planning on putting out like 12 of them.
No, I mean, you don't have to come off as a salesman. I think you do pretty decent at not.
Thank you. I try to show
sometimes you get
the
a little
cons.
like, woo, this is great. But
Yeah.
I think that's generally just because you're excited about things.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyway, yeah, the big thing is just I think it's good to be realistic about what's good, what's bad.
Yeah.
And I think the video... Did you do a beach oyster? You did.
I did one on beach, yeah. And I actually
and then we came back and said, actually, that oyster is garbage. Once we had all of the data back as far as the taste, like beach was so beautiful, but it was not a gourmet.
No, it's no Devil's Back Up Trail.
Right.
Which is funny because Devil's Back Up Trail comes just from up trail of where Devil's Back was found, and there's nothing really special about the flavor or texture of Devil's Back Up Trail. It's literally just the fact that it grows
it's just so dense.
It's so dense. It's so heavy.
Yeah. But the old road and beach were all found within a square mile of each other.
Right.
Like less than that.
So
in the same park, and they're just worlds apart as far as how they grow. It's bizarre.
Right. And what was cool is that was actually our first kind of initial test of like, can you get different genetics in a small geographical range? Like, how widespread are oyster genetics? Apparently, at least phenotypically,
very, very substantial.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, we've gotten probably 50 oysters just from Panther Creek, and most of them are pretty standard. Mm-hmm. But then we've had those few standouts, which made the whole time spent worthwhile.
If only Old Road was found, it would have been worth it.
The Old Road is such a wonderful mushroom.
Oh my god, it's wonderful.
But anyway, strains. I think those are valuable. Andrew has discussed trying to make that a regular segment.
Yep.
Just be realistic about the pros and cons. And I think that's going to be that's the main thing is if you're not coming off as a salesman, if you just say this is what's good, this is what's bad, this is what sucks. Don't grow it if you have no fresh air exchange because you don't have fans or whatever.
Right. Well, Pathfinder would be a really good one to do, I think, because it is harder to grow.
Yep.
And so that's a con right there.
It's a great mushroom if you grow it right, but like if you can't grow it right, it's trash. So I think it's important to have the information.
What, Samantha? Go ahead.
What?
No, we've had quite a few comments on the lighting.
I would have to I would have to stop doing what I'm doing to change it and focus on that. So it's not changing this time, guys. I will work on the lighting next time.
The latest vocabulary word is
Is what?
Borked.
Borked.
Okay, fun.
I don't get it.
The lighting is borked.
Borked.
Yep.
Okay. Well,
Whatever.
that's fair enough. I don't know what that means. Yes, Tom, you're absolutely with us live. So real quick to answer, where was the Pathfinder question? Okay, this is for Brad. So, Brad, real quick, just to answer your question for reals, because we went way off track on that. Pathfinder does what we call tuliping, which is that where they flip up and they kind of curl, and it creates that shape of a tulip. Pathfinder that is growing well is going to do that no matter what. Pathfinder is also a strain that needs to flip up and mature further, so it is not one that holds to the traditional rule of, when the cap, it looks like a button, before it unfurls. You want that strain to unfurl and then continue growing up. That said, if you want the big tulips that are nice and meaty, fresh air, fresh air, fresh air, fresh air. So, and keep it a little. It is actually it grows quite well in warmer temperatures, but it blotches a little easier the warmer it gets. So, you want a good 65-degree room for the best of all worlds. Let's see. Hey, man, we keep getting...
There's your answer, 15 minutes later.
15 minutes later. So actually, we're getting a lot of comments on the sound. Thank you guys on that. I appreciate it, because I can hear it kind of, but I can't hear what YouTube's getting right now. So, okay.
Which means that they're probably hearing me sniffling and everything. Sorry.
Yep.
I'm allergic to Colgate, which is my my night job. And I just went back after being out for the holidays, and man, I was breathing so good. Then I go back in that place, and it's just like,
what is it? The mint?
Probably the people.
Probably the people.
I'm allergic to the people there. If anybody from my job is on there, it's probably you. If you're watching this.
Fair enough.
Derek.
I'm about to run bags of substrate through the 32-quart Presto for the first time. Wish me luck. Good luck, Puck. I assume I pronounced that correctly. P-U-C. So started chestnut and lion. LN.
Andrew.
Chestnut and
Joking.
LN. Oh crap! What is LN?
I'm sorry, Sam's over here. Like,
I can't keep a straight face.
Grimacing.
Grain spawn a few test bags filling out the water. About to star 500 bags a week. Star 500.
No idea.
Okay. Mondo, I don't know what you're saying there, man. So, I just need advice on trike mold. How to kill infections in monotubs. Get rid of the monotubs and start growing in bags. That's you're just gonna battle mold forever. Mold is going to be a problem in monotubs. Just period. I usually just spray alcohol on it, but is there a better way or more detailed way? So actually, I would get away from the alcohol and spray bleach on it if I was to spray anything. I would use fire to kill it typically, unless it's right up against the plastic. Again, monotubs are just hard to keep clean. I once also grew in monotubs and aquariums and all that kind of stuff, and I have found that bag culture is just the way to go.
Yeah.
You can keep things isolated much easier. If something contaminates, you can move that piece out and then put a new bag in, that kind of stuff. It just simplifies the
contaminating
process.
the whole system.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh no!
Oh, you dropped somewhere.
Someone definitely said F the light. So
Yeah, sorry guys, the lighting's terrible. Andrew sucks at his job. It's just part of it.
Oh, I'm gonna stop apologizing about the light. Chat keeps moving on me. So wait, so when your blocks are pinning, what did you say proper temp was for best harvest? So I didn't say there's a proper temperature for harvest. I keep my grow rooms around 65 degrees, if at all possible. That's the temperature that it is. Initiating pinning to harvest. It is the 34 degrees is what Ben was saying is what we store our mushrooms at. 34 degrees in the walk-in. So
yeah, so there are some farms that will like pack a grow room, drop the temperature, and use that to initiate fruiting so that the whole room is harvested at the same time. We don't do that. We have just a continuous rotation within the same grow room. And so we don't use any kind of temperature initiation. We initiate it just by cutting the bag. So so the temperature just stays relatively constant. Of course, it fluctuates a little bit, but yeah, we just have a continuous rotation. Don't worry about the temperature in the grow room.
Exactly. Does freezing kill spores? No, it does not. Well, I mean, certain spores probably. We don't.
But don't count on it.
But don't count on it. Yeah, it's not a way to sterilize, if that's what you're thinking. Freezing is. I mean, that's what spores are made for. Spores are made to survive harsher conditions than the mycelium can survive. So when they produce these spores, or bacteria produce what are called endospores, that is literally them trying to survive freezing temperatures, hot temperatures, chemicals, etc. So that is why we pressure cook things, because it is that hard to crack spores open and kill them.
Yep.
So, in fact, I don't even isopropyl alcohol. I don't think kills spores.
Nope.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It kills living tissue, but not.
Yeah, you can actually. So that's an interesting thing. You can contaminate
with your alcohol.
With contaminated alcohol.
Yeah.
Because
alcohol sanitizes, it does not sterilize.
Right. Bacterial endospores can survive in pure isopropyl alcohol, which is bizarre, but yeah, it's because they're not alive. It's the cell just sheds everything except its genetic material and just desiccates, and then just has a hard outside layer, and it can just withstand about anything. And the mushroom spores are about the same thing. It's just a genetic missile just waiting for conditions to be right, but they can withstand just about any kind of bad condition that you can think of.
Yeah, they're pretty gnarly.
Bleach can be effective because
bleach, yeah, that's
right. Chlorine is just incredibly good at bonding, and so it just shreds the outside layer and exposes the genetic material and destroys it. But
oxidation.
I don't know how to answer that.
That's fine. We can look it up. We can actually do a topic on that, like different types of sterilization.
Yeah, I don't think it's technically oxidation.
Okay.
Chlorine is just very, very good at reacting. So okay. I'm not a chemist.
That seems like a really good episode to have, actually.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
So yeah, we'll go over that for sure. Does UVC light kill mycelium or spores? It kills both. You can use it. It's about exposure times and intensities. So, interestingly enough, you can actually use UVC to induce mutations in spores. Usually a bad idea. But it's something like 5 seconds of spores being exposed to UVC. I forgot the intensity now. It's not that intense. Well, like 5 seconds of the spores are completely gone. So 3 seconds, most of the spores are dead. So it's not very much at all for the UVC. That said, be very careful working with UVC light. I have seen people blind themselves. They get into the mycology community, think, I'm going to use UVC to clean, do my work area, and then they forget to turn it off while they're working, and
that's very, very bad for you.
And then go blind later. Yeah. So yeah. I think the guy that I saw do that actually regained most of his sight. So lucky for him. Hey guys, good luck with the first episode. I'm busy now, but I'll be back to check it later. Well, thank you, Zando. Have you had any cold weather strains struggling in the English weather? Have you any cold weather strains? I have a bunch, Ian. That said,
yeah, actually, you've got a cold weather multi-pack, don't you, on the website?
I actually don't think I have a cold weather pack.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, you got a warm weather pack.
I have a warm weather pack because I consider everything else cold weather.
What are you doing? Oh, I guess.
Right, like everything, like even pinks grow down to 55 degrees Fahrenheit. So
yeah, but
that's not really
can be finicky.
Right. So, anything that's like a blue oyster, the white oysters, most oysters are going to respond well in cold weather.
Yeah.
If you're talking about below freezing temps, no, nothing's going to grow below freezing. Now, there are strains, like I've seen blue oysters freeze solid.
And then start growing again when they thaw.
Exactly. And that kind of amazed me. So you can definitely have cold weather strains that will, like, survive better, but nothing that you're going to be able to produce regularly at below freezing temperatures.
Yeah. Generally speaking, though, your blues tend to be more cold weather tolerant. Though there are some with I can't remember the designation, the 35 or whatever it was.
Which 3015?
3015. didn't seem to be as cold tolerant as like Lambert's.
Right. Lambert's was probably the best. That and
Of the OG oysters.
Right. And that and Field and Force had a one called Blue Dolphin, I think.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
I think that's who had it. That one grew really well on logs outdoors. When I brought it indoors, it didn't do that well.
Okay.
So 3015 grows amazingly, but it
Right,
is
just
probably
seems
the
to want
least.
a little bit more heat
Yeah.
than like Lambert's.
I just didn't like the strain. Like I didn't like the quality of it. So
Yeah, it's a little bit lighter.
exactly.
But yeah, so Lambert's Blue is a workhorse when it comes to that. I think Andrew's got some that are bred with Lambert's heritage. King Blue tends to do decent in cold weather.
King Blue does really well in cold weather. It does well in warmer weather too. So
Yeah.
really, what it appears to me for oysters, you have like wide range oysters, and then you have things that will grow down in the cold.
Okay.
Like there are there are some like 3015 that I've noticed, like you're talking about, that don't do as well at cold, but they perform better in the warm temps.
Yep.
But even then, like most of the strains that we're breeding, like Mother of Pearl, I was like, yeah, this is I bred it and selected for in December, and it was fully cold when that happened. So I thought this is going to be a cold weather strain because I bred it.
It does great in the heat too.
It does great in the heat. It penned in the 90s Fahrenheit.
Yeah. Well, so on the Sinkhole Trail at Panther Creek, I found an oyster 3 different times, each about 3 or 4 months apart, on the same log, same trail, and I actually brought you multiple copies of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were going to try to do
A plate test.
a plate test on
Yeah.
Petri. But yeah, so if it's the same culture, then it's growing, across the seasons, which is very interesting because I found it in dead of winter and the heat of summer. It's possible it's 2 separate colonies growing in the same log,
Right.
or it's possible that it's the same strain, just fruiting in different conditions. It's uncertain. But yeah, things grow in a much wider range than what is generally credited in the mushroom world.
Yeah, and that's actually something I've kind of struggled with. I've had a lot of people like, hey, can you just give me a list of strains and temperatures? And it's like no,
you can't.
Like I can give you kind of like ideas, but anyone who is telling you this strain grows between these temperatures is usually lying to you,
Right.
or taking their best guess.
Well,
like let's
or
not
telling you
do
in their conditions.
right, telling you their conditions. Yeah, that's okay.
Right.
So let's not
And
ascribe anything negative to them.
Legitimately, like it's weird because there are certain facilities that will grow great under certain conditions, and like so the golds are a good example of this. There are certain facilities where they can't grow them outside of a narrow temperature range, but then we throw the same exact strain, same exact culture, everything in our grow room, and it will grow in a much wider range. So I don't know. I think it just has to do with the MossBack magic. Like, if you got it, stuff just grows.
I told my parents, I was like, I don't have a green thumb. I've got the white thumb, right, that grows the mushrooms.
Different way.
I'm not saying brown thumb. Not around you. I know where that goes. Vance says,
White thumb.
I've had several bags of my oat spawn lately creating brown liquid. Do you know why? Does variations in incubation temperatures cause this? So Vance, just going off that little bit, I don't know what all you've got, and what strains are producing it. But usually this brown or black liquid comes within a hericium. There are a lot of reasons I see them doing this. Sometimes it's the time of year. Sometimes it's heat stress. Sometimes it's an underlying bacterial infection. Usually when that bag is producing black or brown liquid, it will come out to when you cut it and initiate it and the mushrooms start to grow, those mushrooms will usually liquefy at some point and then create this like drippy effect that will infect every mushroom below it. So, and what's interesting is I never see it start with oysters, but it can absolutely spread to oysters. So I usually just throw that spawn out. Sometimes it just comes from the bag sitting around for a long time. And I never have figured out exactly what it is. I've tried to culture it, and when I did culture it, it grew mold. Now that said, is that a bunch of metabolite? Like that the mushroom is trying to destroy the mold with that metabolite, or is it like it just happens to be an infected area? Is the black liquid from that mold itself? I don't know. So I have seen that in Hericium, but not really oysters.
So yeah, so then follow-up question. You said spawn, right?
Yeah, spawn.
Like, do you... So follow up on that, Vance, if you'll just throw a response later on. We'll get to it when we see it. Is it lion's mane, or are you talking about oyster mushrooms? Because that'd be an interesting thing to.
Yes, yeah.
find
Please,
out.
please, Vance, and let me know what that is. So, well, wow, I'm honored to be here. Well, thank you, Todd. So this is my first time to catch a live. I've learned so much from you and Andrew and your guest, of course. Well, thank you, Todd. I really appreciate that, and I appreciate you joining us today. Dang it, the chat jumped again. It's like it won't load for a long time, so I'm like, oh, there's only like one other thing,
Right,
and
and
it
then
just
it pops.
jumps huge. What's a good spawning temperature for lion's mane? Do you mean temperature in the lab or temperature for your block? Because I always just let my blocks cool to room temperature before we inoculate them.
Sometimes we push it a little bit when
Right.
it's still warm, but you don't want it to be hot. If it's uncomfortable for your hands, then it's going to be uncomfortable for the mycelium.
Yeah, exactly. So that's, if you're talking about like in your room, I don't think that the temperature, as long as you're not heat stressing, like you're not in the 90s
Right.
or something in your lab.
If
then
it's
you're-
comfortable for you, it'll
It's
be fairly
comfortable.
comfortable for the mycelium.
Yeah, that's a good answer, just across the board. Thank you for starting this cast. I'm planning out my farm and want to make it my primary income, middle class by 2023. Your videos have been
man.
clutch. Well, thank you. Man, you got some ambitious goals.
Yeah,
I'm just looking to get out of poverty.
right.
I'm at 72 at the moment in my spawning tent. It's full of lion's mane, few oysters. Yeah, Mondo, that seems good to me, man. Is it that dark? So it's actually not that dark in this room as what it looks like on the camera. We were definitely trying to go for like a fire lit side. I will work on it again. Hey, Andrew. Oh, what's up, Someday? I assume it's Cameron. They said lightning is Borked. Okay, yeah, we're down to that comment finally. How many fresh air? Well, Fritz, I don't know how many fresh air for what.
If you're talking about Pathfinder, so here's the thing: we actually don't take that much in the way of measurements. Like
we're
I don't
kinda
even
awful at
have
that, like-
an animeter or whatever the heck it's called, where
Right.
you test the actual airflow. No idea.
And the only reason why we have a CO2 meter is because we just picked it up somewhere else.
Right. It happened to be part of the large collection of stuff that we got from a farm that was going out of business. So, yeah, how much? No idea. Like, until it looks good. Like,
Yeah.
Andrew had some early videos where he was discussing that we're pretty low tech about things.
Right.
The main thing is the mushrooms will tell you what they want, and you learn to read them. If they, it can be strain specific, so you got to watch that. But if you have a standard oyster in there, and it's getting spindly and tall, you don't have enough. And if you look at various pictures from different farms, you can get a baseline, and then just compare your mushrooms to them.
Right.
Now, if you're using somebody who sucks at growing or doesn't have ideal conditions, that can mess you up. But we got plenty of pictures available, I think, on the website or just on various videos where Andrew shows the grow room, and you can see what a reasonable oyster mushroom should look like, and that'll give you an idea of what's going on.
Yeah, again, it's so strain specific.
Right.
Like that's what I've learned by growing so many wild mushrooms and breeding so many new strains and like testing them out is that so many things really are just strain specific.
Yeah.
Like the genetics plays a much bigger part than I think anybody really realized. I mean, maybe I shouldn't say anybody, but most growers realized.
Well, that's a consequence of having a relatively few viable commercial strains,
Right.
Early on. And it's still that way, but it's changing as more and more become available.
Yep. Everyone who goes through my mentorship comes in, and I teach them how I breed new strains of mushrooms. So we got some people that are now starting to produce.
Yep.
Um,
There's going to be a freaking mush explosion.
There's going to be a much explosion of varieties very soon.
Yeah.
Because I've been training people for I've only added that to the mentorship about 6 months ago.
Okay.
And then, of course, you know, people who have taken my mentorship before, you know, I'll just, if they call me up, I just tell them.
Backport the information
Exactly.
to their knowledge base.
And already we're getting people, like my super scallop oyster, which is one of my favorite looking oysters. There's already somebody who's got like a baby blue version of that.
Oh, nice.
It's so cool. Yeah. So it's like already, I'm like, I want your strain. I got to have it. I was like, where can I buy it? And he's like, oh, I'm not even selling this strain. He's like, actually, I was kind of mad at it for doing that wrinkled look. And I was like, nope, want it.
Right.
Definitely want it. So,
well, that's the beautiful thing. Like, you get those weird things, and that's where the real value is when you start exploring the edge cases. So Andrew used to work at Sustainable Aquatics. This is a little bit of an aside. And Matt, the chief scientist over there, or whatever his actual
I think he was technically
was.
president of the company, but he was basically...
Yeah, he was the guy who actually kept everything together. One way or another, Matt was just incredible because he had an eye for it. Like, he would spot, this is with clownfish, he would spot, like, one weird little thing when it was just a little baby. And it was just like, that's not the way things are normally expressing at this point. And so he would isolate that and specifically try to breed that fish to express that genetic weirdness.
And so he ended up getting weird, like clownfish that instead of like the 3 thin little white stripes on the orange body, like
Just
they had full like
huge amounts of variety.
Right. Looked like knights wearing armor almost, you know, that kind of stuff. Or
and that's where his value came, is he developed more varieties of clownfish than the entire market had before he got involved.
right. But if you ask commercial farmers at the time when he was developing this stuff, they'd be like, no, that's not the way it's supposed to look.
Right.
And they would have thrown that away. And then he ends up breeding that and making a whole subsection, and people want that. That's actually what I'm targeting now with the breeding is
The interesting things.
the interesting things, and I'm targeting people who sell at farmers markets.
Yeah.
So
And so there's a few things. This is actually something that I wanted to talk about. We got a little bit of time.
Yeah.
But the strain development. So Elm Z was like the big epiphany.
that was by Jay.
Jay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he bred Elm A under heat stress to make it fruit in higher temperatures, which was beautiful because now all of a sudden you can
You had
grow
a good
elm
quality
year
oyster,
round.
yeah. And the heat.
And so that was good work on his part. And so these are some of the things that we want. Is we want to have new expressions, like Mother of Pearl, where it has that globe with a whole bunch of small mushrooms. I think that's awesome. The Devil's Backup Trail, where it has just such a tight beach, would have been awesome if it didn't suck as a flavor.
Right. There's just no flavor to it.
And then beyond that, we want to explore different growing conditions. So, like, Andrew's about to start breeding shiitake. Have you already done this?
We've started collecting the spores. We haven't started crossing yet.
Okay. But we are going to be selecting for fast-growing shiitake to try to speed up the rate of return on the shiitake. Now, what's interesting is when you start doing that thing, when you start to isolate for one specific trait, then there's usually a trade-off in another area. So
Right.
fast-rooting shiitake will probably have an impact on texture. And this is something we see. The longer you incubate shiitake, generally the meatier, the deeper,
The denser,
richer the
the-
texture is. But that can be resolved by further developing the strain. And this is something that's been done in the Orient for millennia.
Yeah, I think at least 1,000 years.
Yeah, so you've got like their oranges and their different trees that
yeah.
it takes forever to grow a new tree, and so their the rate of change in their breeding programs is so slow compared to mushrooms. Mushrooms, like oysters, you've got a month before you have a complete cycle, and each cycle you can be selecting. And so just the rate of change that we can see, I think that there's a huge amount of genetic material that's gone untapped with oysters.
I think so. And like that's
shiitake takes
just
longer.
in the common, like even just in the common commercial strains, I feel like there's a lot of untapped potential.
We know there is because
we've been seeing it.
well, you did like 136 versions of BA.
The BS, blue crossed
BS.
with snow.
Yeah, the blue and the snow.
So that's Lambert's 123 crossed with Norse Forest snow oyster.
Yeah, and I think you got 136 different strains that were isolated.
We're still
still testing them.
We're still testing them. Like we just released BS10.
Yeah. So that from that one cross, we've seen a dramatic amount of different expressions, and so that, like, even just latent genetic traits that are just hiding in the background, with a different cross, we're seeing incredible expressions that are just wild. Mother of Pearl was one of that series, wasn't it?
Mother of Pearl was, yep.
Yeah.
Mother of Pearl was at BS5. We just released BS10 recently, which is Blue Smoke. Rocky Top was BS8.
Okay. What about the Copperhead?
Copperhead is EB5.
Okay.
That's an Elm Z crossed with Lambert's 123.
But yeah, so there's, I think that once we really start exploring it in a systematic way, which we've already begun, then the range of expressions, like growing oyster mushrooms is not going to be growing oyster mushrooms.
Right.
You'll have to learn
each strain individually, yeah.
Because even a blue oyster, what blue?
Right.
Like you won't be able to.
Which blue?
You won't be able to say anything about it until you know that specific strain.
Well, it's like people used to
hundreds of different varieties are literally in process of rolling out.
Right.
Just from here.
Yeah, oh my gosh. So how many wild oysters did you bring us like the past 2 days? Like 20?
Oh shoot, I got like 6 more at the house.
Got 6 more. So like we got between Jack and Ben and Stephanie, we've got like 26 new oyster strains that have come in from the wild just this year. 2 of them from across the shop, or 1 of them?
Yeah, just one.
Okay,
I couldn't
just
reach the other one.
We need to see if we can get the BB gun and just blast it down.
Oh, it was old.
Oh, well,
it wasn't gonna be.
We'll
good.
wait for it later. Either way, like right now I'm just crossing commercial strains together. I can't wait. And well, K-Bore's just coming out. We're actually testing our first series of K-Bore, which is the first time we've crossed King Blue, like a commercial strain, with a wild strain, which is King Blue crossed with Old Road. And we're seeing some like interesting things coming out of it. So
yep. And who knows if it's actually even crossing? That's a whole nother story. There's a possibility that either one is breeding back on itself and expressing. The weird thing is that sometimes they'll like still breed back on themselves, but then they'll touch each other and be like, "You're not me, but I'm going to take this.
Right.
So just ignore me, but you're me now."
Right.
Their mushroom genetics is just bizarre.
Well, yeah, that's one of the reasons why it's like I cannot wait until we get people like labs that set up where it's much easier to send in lots of samples and test lots of samples really cheaply, because the amount of strains we're getting out of just a single cross, like we got what was it, like 130 something strains from the first cross.
136, I believe, from just that first one that you did.
Yeah, and then from that.
And by the way, that's 136 strains that were specifically selected because there was some trait about them in the early testing that was interesting.
Right.
That's down selected from probably 1,000 or so different strains that were actually started and grown out, down selected to 136.
Which is why we actually have a new rule going forward. Every time we breed a new strain, we only select 5 to 10 strains from that, and we know, because man, the first time I crossed was like, it was right after it was right when we opened up the new grow room in the basement.
Yeah.
So what has that been, like 2 years?
Something like that.
It's like 2.5 years.
We're still not done with the test batches to actually find out the full expression.
I haven't even gotten into the 20s hardly.
Yeah.
A BS21, BS26 are released. BS21 is Super Scout. So, like.
But yeah, so that's something that showed early
weird
promise, and then we run a full commercial test and trial in the grow room, and most of them just get discarded. But then if there's something that warrants the development of it, the further development, then we'll actually name it and make it available.
Absolutely.
So that's a huge aside. Hopefully you enjoyed that. If not, well, sorry.
Sorry. Except not. What's most important for a good incubation room? Honestly, man, I'm just gonna say temperature, just hands down temperature.
Yeah.
Like, we have.
Oh, and airspace isolation from your grow room. This is something I've seen is, so people have this mindset of your grow room should be positively pressured, which sure
in some cases
in an
is
isolated
correct.
instance that can be ideal because you're keeping out outside contamination. But that stems from back when people grew on straw and the bags were subjected to the ambient conditions for their like entire incubation cycle. So if you're growing in the sealed bags, then negatively pressured grow room is best, or at least extract air at the same rate as you're adding to. So if you can have a neutral pressure, that's fine. Negative
that's
pressure
really
I think
hard
is
to
ideal.
achieve.
Right.
Yeah.
Negative pressure is ideal as far as my experience because that keeps all that filth in the grow room from backing into the rest of your facility. If you have any way in which air can flow back from your grow room into incubation, you're screwed. So
I've seen that a few times. I've actually been to some farms where I've seen airflow.
You will
flowing
struggle.
back. Yeah.
The humidity gets too high, the bags will sweat, that water will carry filth through the filter patch. If a spore is able to initiate,
It can grow through. They can grow through the filter patch in
pop
no
through,
time, and then spore out.
You're screwed. Yeah. So
you see this a lot with Neurospora.
yeah. So effective isolation between your grow room air and your incubation air, and then just maintaining temperature. I think those are the two main things. CO2 levels, they can be as high as they get. Just don't be in there when it's really high.
Right.
But you do need some fresh air exchange, ideally, with that being separated from the grow room and everything
Now,
else.
that said, I will say that I have noticed that I feel like fresh air, like oxygen is less important to incubating oysters than getting rid of the CO2.
Right.
CO2, like, you want to get rid of the CO2. I'm not really, I mean, that said, if you're getting rid of CO2, the easiest way to do that is with freshly
Right.
just fresh air.
Exchange your air.
But getting rid of, like, that's actually one of the nice things about unicorn bags is that unicorn bags actually, as far as I understand it, allow CO2 to permeate. Like, CO2 can leave the plastic, through the plastic.
Yeah, through the actual plastic, the bag itself, not just the filter patch.
Right. And so that's actually one of the nice things about the unicorn bags is that they allow for CO2 to escape, which allows the strain to keep moving without a big CO2 pool building up. So that's the biggest thing, Thomas. The most important things for a good incubation room to me are being able to control your temperature, being able to get rid of that CO2, and definitely being able to keep your incubation dehumidified, or at least keeping air from your grow room from coming back into it to keep mold from growing on those filter patches.
Right.
So let's see. I'm going to...
But yeah, now we draw in just ambient air. If you can filter it, I mean, if your outside air is particularly filthy, then sure. But as long as the conditions are reasonable, then we don't even filter the air going in.
No,
to
we don't.
Incubation.
Not to incubation. Like, we don't. The only time we filter air is in the lab, really.
Right.
So, or on our face, I guess.
Right.
I'm gonna start 500 bags of Master's Mix next week. Heck yeah, Mondo, that's awesome. How low can humidity be without negative growth? Well, negative growth is no growth. So
He means impacting growth.
Impacting growth. Oh, like before it's negatively impacts growth. Gotcha. So
we've grown in. So the big thing is we have swings, right? So we don't really let it sit at any one percentage terribly long. And the low end of that can be pretty low as long as it has a higher swing in your humidity. So what are we currently doing as far as the range? Andrew adjusts it somewhat between winter and summer, depending on what outdoor conditions are.
Well, and now, where I'm not changing it as often. So I don't know what it currently is because Jack's the one that said it recently.
Yeah. Andrew doesn't grow mushrooms anymore.
I don't grow mushrooms
Just
anymore.
to be clear, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Don't listen to him.
Jack, so if you guys want, actually, Jack has said that he'd be willing to come on the podcast with me
that would
sometime.
be great. Someone who actually knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's still connected with the mushrooms.
Right, yeah. That way you guys can actually get a taste of what it's like to talk to a mushroom grower instead of me. That said,
historical information has some value, though.
It does. So, what do you call me? You calling me historical? Like ancient? Like old?
Yeah, it has been.
Oh my goodness, yeah. It has been.
Any of those things. But yeah, so what, we used to do like 60 to 80, 60 to 90, 70 to 90?
65 to 90 was the last thing I can remember setting it to.
Yeah, but we'll adjust the top end and the bottom end depending on how moist the room is staying. And a lot of that has to do with the ambient humidity. Of course, if your ambient humidity is above your low point, then your humidity is just going to stay flat, and you don't really want that. So it's one of those things that you just have to play with.
Yep.
But as far as I've seen mushrooms growing, and the relative humidity has been about 60%. They can manage that, but again, out in the world, that fluctuates.
Right.
And
in fact, what I've seen is that having fluctuating humidity is actually a positive benefit in the grow room. It
helps to initiate, I think.
I think it lowers contamination by not having it soft and wet all the time. Right. It helps to initiate pinning because so a lot of commercial farms they'll fill an entire room
and then just blast it at 100% humidity.
Yeah, they'll drop the temperature and blast humidity.
Yep.
And that to help initiate, and then they slowly get drier and drier and drier until harvest time, and then they're picking dry mushrooms, right? And that's actually something I've had commented on a lot by my chefs is how dry our mushrooms are, and I think that's just in large part because we just do the swings. Right. I don't do the commercial method because I don't have the space.
Right.
To run a farm.
Or really the infrastructure, that. Right. All of that costs money.
Right.
And so we decided very early on the path that we were going to do was what's the most direct route from where we're at to where we ultimately want to be, and then just modify where you want to be according to what you learn along the way. And we discovered that a lot of the infrastructure heavy ways of doing things weren't necessary if you were willing to adjust your expectations.
Right.
And
Eric Lohman called us the kings of the low tech.
Right, yeah.
Which is basically calling us kings of the trash heap, I think.
Oh, yeah. We're we're the dung beetles of the mushroom world. It's fine.
I'm okay with that. Ooh, Samantha, there you go.
Scarabs.
There you go. He said we're the dung beetles of the mushroom world. That should be one of our or art. A vulture.
Some of your art stuff.
Yeah.
I want to see some Egyptian scarab artwork going on here.
It's got to be. It's got pushing up a big ball of poo with mushrooms growing out of it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so one of the big things we did was just decide that we didn't have to be as rigid in our time schedules, and if we just allow things to grow according to their own cycle, it does cause a little bit of variability in our harvest,
right.
And our ability to set expectations. So we just work in a little bit of an extra margin. We try to grow a little bit more than what we promise.
Right.
And sometimes we end up throwing mushrooms away, but the cost to get there was so much less than if we were trying to control, the amount of AC you have to drop your temperature down to 40 to initiate.
And to have that kind of control.
Pinning, yeah. All of that takes infrastructure, and it's
infrastructure takes money, and money we did not have when we started. So
we didn't have money. We didn't know how to connect to money. We didn't think anybody would be willing to risk putting money towards us because we were just some freaking bumpkins in a basement and didn't know what we were doing. And how do you sell that? I'm sure somebody could.
I'm sure somebody could.
But that wasn't our strength. Our strength was figuring out how to work with what we had, and that's what we did.
Oh man.
Leftover buckets and poverty.
Leftover buckets and poverty. Would hydrogen peroxide kill? So hydrogen peroxide will kill spores, but you handle the butt.
So this is an oxidizer. The issue with hydrogen peroxide is the peroxide element, when it is interacting with whatever material, then it oxidizes, and that removes that spare oxygen. And then so you have a decay curve as it goes into a substrate. So it will spend itself, and then it just becomes water. And by the time it reaches the center of whatever nugget you're trying to sanitize, then you may or may not have any effectiveness in what remains.
Okay,
because
so
really it's water with an
when
extra oxygen.
So as the oxidization process happens, it actually there's only it's like a charge or something. Like it's only got so much that.
Well, yeah, so it strips off that extra, and that reacts with whatever material. Again, I'm not a chemist. I'm sure somebody can come in here and tell me exactly how I'm wrong.
Hey, we
Great,
should have
I appreciate that.
Mosh from the Discord come on.
Yeah, that would be
he is
great.
a chemist.
Yeah, the big thing is I don't know anything about what I'm talking about. I just talk. But I will allow people to know that I don't know what I'm talking about.
Did you hear that? You just said you don't know what you're talking about. Samantha said she seconds that.
Yeah, she knows that I don't know.
Into mosh. Having mosh on.
Yeah, that would be good. I appreciate people who actually do know what they're talking about.
So here's the thing, guys. I don't know anything. I just surround myself with people who do. So
Right.
yeah.
But anyway, so that's the issue with hydrogen peroxide. Is it's a chemical reaction that, what?
Just realized that's what my dad said about George Bush back in the day. Like back in 2004, Dad was like, you know, I like George W. Bush. And I was like, oh yeah, why? And he's like, well, he's kind of an idiot. But the good news is he recognizes that he's an idiot, and he surrounds himself with smart people.
He compensates for it.
Am I the George Bush of mushrooms?
I'm just going to call you GW.
GW. Oh my goodness. Can you store inoculated grain, and if so, for how long? Move in and try to. Yes. So just put it in the fridge.
Yeah.
As
long as it's not pink, then you're fine.
Right. You don't want to let it go too far on the shelf. Like once it starts fruiting in bag and stuff, then it's going to be less effective. That doesn't mean it's going to be not effective. It just means that when you put it in the refrigerator, it's slowing down the metabolism. So you can't just pull it out and use it and expect the exact same speedy results, but you will still get results. So.
Yeah. Oh, so the hydrogen peroxide, was that in reference to like the monotub?
Yeah, it was the guy that was doing the monotub.
So the simple thing is, where that's surface contamination, maybe, I don't know. It will probably have some bearing on the percentage of hydrogen peroxide. You probably don't want to use the medical because it has stabilizers in it.
Right.
But if you can get like the food grade, the 6%, that might work out okay. I don't know if it will have any negative effect on the growth of the mushrooms, but that would be certainly an experiment I'd be interested to see.
Yeah, so if you do it, please let us know.
Yeah, for sure.
James of Mr. Woody's Mushrooms says, what is the best substrate to grow chestnut mushrooms in? I grow everything that I'm growing right now except shiitake grows in the goat mix. So that's the
straw and soy.
Straw and soy 50-50 mix. So it's the master's mix, just replace the sawdust with straw dust. So well, storing spores in ISO from here on out. I didn't say that. I didn't say that was a good idea either. I'm switching to bleach.
It's not good for it. They just have the ability to withstand it at least some of the time.
Right. So if I want to switch to bags from monotubs, do I need to relearn substrate? I use cocoa. Is that usable for bags? So you can use cocoa in bags. The great thing, the great thing about the bags is that you can use anything that you've been used to. Yeah. You can mix different substrates.
It really just doesn't care.
Right. All you're doing is instead of having it open air in the monotub, it is in a filtered environment. So.
Yep. So and that's the whole thing, is that it's isolated. Once you sanitize, sterilize, pasteurize, whatever izing you're doing to that bag, then those conditions will stay there. Anything that's still alive, once it's sealed, will grow. Anything that's not there will just not be there, unless you contaminate the filter patch. So it's just easier to keep things clean.
Right.
The substrate doesn't matter at all. And
Todd, don't feel like you got to shut up, man. Samuel says, I used UVC on some colonized agar and it burned it. Yeah, no doubt. For sure. Mushrooms tan like we do. I think they might even burn like we do. So, Todd also says UV is harmful to humans. Be careful. I think we covered that earlier.
Right.
Just wanted to say thanks. You're very, very welcome. Thank you.
Hi, Jesse.
Hey, Jesse's
Audio sounds
on.
great.
Hey, thank you, Jesse.
Excellent.
And
Andrew
Ian-
does good work some of the time.
Some of the time.
Now, what's really going to be cool is when you get the switchboard working and we can have us sitting on different sides of the table and,
And
somebody
switch
actively
between it.
switching between us.
Yeah, I'm hoping
Andrew's
to
going to get legit one of these days. It's just not today.
Well, it's just, slow. I've got kids and you know how that
it's
is.
stepwise
It's
progress.
stepwise,
That's
yeah.
just what it is.
Bit by bit.
Today the sound is good. The lighting is terrible.
Tomorrow,
Next time, we'll see.
lighting hopefully is better and the sound is good.
Yep.
Ian says, oh, never mind, that's for me. Yeah, absolutely, man, just email us. And we'll talk about getting you some mushrooms out to good old England. How do some growers produce huge orangi mushrooms? So usually, Thomas, the big orangis that you see, that is a strain thing. The King's strain that we sell is one of the giant strains. That's my favorite to grow. Who else? There's Stay Away. Like the North Spore Kings are small. So if you want the giant Kings, you want to go with Field and Forest has got a good King strain.
Not saying North Spore's King is bad. It's just
Right.
It's a different beast.
Right, I'm just saying, like,
Just to be clear.
I think Mycelium Emporium, I think most of Lenny's are the smaller Kings. If you, like, I've got a picture of King Oyster where the cap is like that. My hand is sitting in the cap, and the stem is as big as my forearm. That 10-pound
That was
box.
a standout, just to be clear.
That was a standout,
It's
yeah,
not
it
like
wasn't-
what you're going to get.
Correct. But, like, I will say that the mushrooms are pretty large. When we do a 10-pound box, it's usually like 5 mushrooms in a 10-pound box for
Yeah.
our Kings.
Yeah.
So they grow quite
They're
large.
big.
I have a theory: if a mushroom will grow somewhere, then any mushroom can grow there. That is a theory that I can debunk.
Yeah.
That does not work.
Different mushrooms do actually want different material. for
Absolutely.
Sure. So yeah, apparently chlorine or bleach is an oxidizer.
Awesome. Thank you, Nathan.
Nathan Prittis.
Prittis.
Don't know you, but thanks for the input because I wasn't quite sure.
How do you initiate fruiting for orangi? So the king oysters, the way I initiate is the same way I initiate everything. Is just
Yep.
we cut the bag open and let the grow room handle the rest.
Yep. Because lazy.
Because I am lazy.
The number one thing we try to avoid is work.
Right.
And so, like, people want to do their casing layers, people want to smack that bag or do the scratchy scratch. I'm sure that they get better yields for it, but the whole thing is what is the output per unit of human labor? And ultimately, like, so if there is a step we can remove, we just cut it out. And,
Right.
And so even if results aren't quite as good, generally your as long as the output per unit of human labor is superior, we'll accept whatever the results.
So I'm actually going to be doing a video on that, but I do have a blog post on Mossy Creek Mushrooms website, which is called Good Enough, and it is legitimately just about how I don't try to grow perfect mushrooms. I think that's backwards. I try to perfect the system to growing good enough mushrooms.
Right.
So, so yeah, labor is one. Labor's a deal killer for me. I'm a fat boy. I like to keep being fat. We are starting farm in Germany and Cologne. First of all, a big thank you for all of the big info you share. We'd like to get some deeper info about running a big farm and give some recommendations one day. So that's something that I'm going to shelve for the future because we're already past time
Yep.
for us to end today.
But Andrew does have phone consultations.
I do.
And he does pretty good work there.
Absolutely.
So shout out to that.
Hey, come in for a mentorship. We actually had a mentorship come in from Germany.
Oh, yeah.
And that was really fun for me. Samantha and I.
That might be prohibitive,
Right.
as far as the travel goes, but
Oh yeah, I forgot with all the restrictions going on too right now. So
you're certainly welcome to do that. But one way or another, like the phone consultations are a very good way to export information across borders.
real quick before we close up, I know, guys, there's been a lot of questions, and Ben and I have done a lot of talking about.
Lambert and King Blue incubation temperatures do fluctuate often. LC contam. Is that what you're talking about?
So yeah, as Vance is saying, get back to you from the previous metabolite oat grain spawn question. It's been happening to our oyster strains, Lambert and King Blue. My incubation temperatures do fluctuate often. LC contam. For a brown liquid, I've not seen any contaminations that produce a brown liquid.
Now,
Vance,
one question is like, what's your grain spawn recipe? Because I know different people use different things, so I don't know if you have anything in your actual grain spawn that might be periodically releasing this material. Does it actually impact growth? Did he establish that, or was it just?
Oh, he did. He did. I don't remember him
liquid?
saying so. I think he was just saying it was producing a brown liquid. I don't know if it was making the spawn unusable.
Okay.
Hericium, I usually
because if you have weird grains, then who knows? Like, it might actually just be a substrate issue.
Right. That's another thing too. Sometimes liquid, that the yellowy orange liquid that some of the strains produce, does kind of have a brown effect if there's like a lot of water being expressed in the bags, and it's diluted the orange.
You're just talking about the normal metabolite.
Right.
It usually looks like urine. Sometimes it looks like
hippie piss.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know, Vance. One thing I will say is you can feel free to email us at mosscreekmushrooms@gmail.com and send us some pictures, and I'll try to take it back on. Good time for my internet to come back. Heck yeah. So, guys, we are going to close this up.
We are past time. This has been fun.
It has been fun. We are. I know that it's sad that I didn't get to whoever I didn't get to today.
Yeah.
We will be doing this every Wednesday.
We still love you. It's just, we set a limitation because, frankly, an hour is long for me anyway. These stools aren't comfortable. I love Andrew and Samantha's presence, but my bum hurts. So I'm going to get off.
Fair enough. With that, guys, we'll be back Wednesday at 3:30. I'm still planning on doing regularly scheduled videos as well. But with that, thank you for joining us for today's first episode of the MushRune Cast. And with that, y'all,
Success.
keep spawning culture. Success.